I'm Ann Dart.
I'm Tracy Stormy.
And I'm Kathy Knight.
And together we are
It Was a Dark and Stormy Book Club,
a podcast for mystery lovers.
Welcome.
If you enjoy our show, please consider contributing to the Dark and Stormy Patreon. By becoming a patron, you will help us create better and quality content. There are also benefits to becoming a patron, such as exclusive content and Dark and Stormy merchandise. Become a supporter at patreon.com/darkandstormybc. Check our website for the link. We appreciate any and all contributions. Thank you.
Welcome back to the 80th episode of It Was a Dark and Stormy Book Club. We have an exciting program today. Anne will give us a book report on The Jean Harlow Bombshell by Molly Cox Bryan. But first, we're going to listen to an interview we did with Faye Snowden, who is the author of A Killing Fire.
Faye Snowden is the author of 4 published mysteries with Kensington Press: Spiral of Guilt, The Savior, Fatal Justice, and her new book, A Killing Fire. She has published short stories and poems in various literary journals and small presses, including the African American Review, Calliope, Red Ochre Lit, Bay Area Poets Coalition, and Occam's Razor. Aside from her publications, she has also managed 2 boys, a husband, 5 dogs, and 3 writing fellowships over the years. Today, Faye works and writes from her home in Northern California.
The book we'll be discussing today is A Killing Fire. The first time Raven Burns saw her father killed, the victim was her mother. Afterwards, Floyd Fire Burns set the house on fire, making Raven watch as the flames slithered across the yard like some unknown language. Then he took her on a multi-state killing spree. She could have told or killed him in his sleep, but there were his constant whispers, his wet lips close to her ear, saying, "Little girls who told were sent to hell, and their mothers were called down from heaven to take care of them." By the time he is executed, Raven has become a cop with the sole purpose of putting men like him away. But she can't escape Lloyd's terrorizing voice in her head, somehow guiding her steps while reminding her of the horrors he has forced her to witness.
Welcome, Faye. We would like to welcome Faye Snowden to the podcast. She is the author of the very compelling book, A Killing Fire. Welcome, Faye.
What or who was your inspiration for your protagonist, Raven?
For me, it all starts with a question and an ideal. I just think about the idea of what would happen if someone was actually a child of a parent who may not be moral. So it just kind of came to me with that. The first person who started talking to me was Floyd, and then also his parents, Hammer and Sarah. I just thought they've had this child that was evil, and then I just kind of started thinking about what if he had a daughter, how would her upbringing be kind of impacted by the type of person he was. So I guess you can say that my inspiration came from just thinking about this antagonist or this upbringing, and that she was just kind of born out of that. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's how she came to be.
Yes, it does make sense.
So Floyd was totally fictional? He's not based on anyone in real life?
No, Floyd is totally fictional. And it is so hilarious when I really know that I have a book or something that's going to work. It all starts with this, and here we go, with this voice in my head. And it was this Floyd just started kind of talking to me as I was thinking I was just going to sit down and write a mystery. And he kind of popped up in there and just started talking. And then I was like, oh my goodness, this is a book.
Well, I'm glad there isn't a Floyd in this world.
No.
Raven had to fight every step of the way to get her case solved, which made her stronger. But why did you feel she had to have such a hard time of it?
But usually my books are based on ideas about how I see the world. And especially with a mystery, I think what mystery authors like to do is how can I put order onto this very disorderly world? And I think about how can I make people think about how hard it is to actually be virtuous and to be good. And I think it's a struggle. I think that Floyd, to me, is that dark place inside all of us. us, and that if we don't recognize that dark place and fight it to the max, then that thing can overtake us. So I just felt that some of the hardships that Raven had to go through and will go through in the next books is just like overcoming that dark place. And for some of us, it's not easy to do that. I'm kind of a softie. I think about, people that have done really, really bad things in their lives. How did they make that decision? I know sometimes it doesn't even feel like a decision, but I think as people not recognizing that this is something that I have to not only accept, but in a way control. I just felt that it's not easy kind of overcoming that.
Raven, her story, I think it's going to stick with me for a long time. I just kept thinking about what her childhood must have been like. Have you ever considered writing a prequel?
I never really thought about that. Hearing that question makes me think that that's not a bad idea. I was also raised in a very abusive household. We always think of some of this is my fault. How do you get over that? And I've spent decades trying to get over that. I never thought about sitting down and looking at it just from that viewpoint. And that's an excellent idea, though. It would be an interesting story to tell.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I would read it, that's for sure.
Raven struggled with good versus evil throughout the book. Was giving she and her father the two different colored eyes, was that kind of a metaphor for that internal struggle?
Yes, it was. And I had a wonderful writing partner and also an awesome editor and agent. I would just mention it every other page, the green eye and the blue eye. My writing partner was like, Faye, to hammer this in. I was thinking about the American Indians. There's a story about when you have the two different colored eyes that you can see good and evil through the same body. And I had found out about that story after I had given her those characteristics. So it was really amazing that that story came after. But yes, it was a metaphor for good and evil. And I was surprised that you picked that up because my friend said, tone it down, Faye, tone it down.
No, it rang very true for me. It almost sounds like it was meant to be. It was almost like a happy little accident.
Yeah.
After reading this book, you have to be a fan of classic hard-boiled mysteries. There was some real detective work going on in this book. Are any of your characters based on people you know?
No, not the characters that actually survived the final edit. I tried to do that. When you're looking at that final book and you're reading it, all those things about people you know, they really kind of stick out like sore thumbs. So those people kind of melted away from the book. And the people that were left were the characters that I built through the course of writing the book. People can Google things and people watch cop shows. So I really try to make sure that some of the detective work that goes on in the book is based on some type of reality. And the man whose name I can't remember wrote a homicide manual that I've had for years and years and years. As a matter of fact, when my kids were small, I hid it into like the deepest, darkest corners of the house so they would never get their hands on it. It was a homicide manual for police officers and detectives for investigation. And that's what I used. And then I also talked to police officers. Yeah, I am a fan of those hard-boiled mysteries as well.
You have an interesting backstory yourself. You've been in the military and you've had a job in information technology. This kind of leads into the last question, that the one job we did not see was law enforcement. Where did you get your technical aspects of the job?
It really came from just researching, using the manual, and also different podcasts that I listen to. And then I also go on ride-alongs, and then there are all kinds of other books for writers that talk about real versus the TV shows as far as detective work. And so that's where I got it. It does take a lot of research.
That's interesting to me that you can go on ride-alongs. Is the police department very cooperative with things like that? How do you set that up?
Yes. Well, I also took a Citizens Police Academy course. I think it lasted several weeks. I just sat in a classroom for several hours every week to learn about police work. It was something that our Modesto Police Department offered here. And then you can arrange ride-alongs calling Modesto Police Department and just set one up. It's really kind of easy to do here. It was fun. It was different.
I bet.
That's great.
That sounds like something I'd like to try myself.
Sometimes they'll look at you and say, stay in the car. They'll go, stay in the car and don't move, because they're always concerned about your safety. And yeah, that was an experience.
One other question that I had, Bird River is a fictional place in Louisiana, right?
Yes, Bird Landing is totally fictional.
I was just curious as to why you would set it at a totally fictional place, because the atmosphere is very Louisiana, that's for sure. You could have chosen any small town in Louisiana, but you chose to go fictional, and I just wondered why.
Because I believe that the setting is part of the book. I saw it as a character in the book. And then now I love going back and forth to Louisiana. And I actually went back there when my aunt died several years ago, and all the nostalgia. But when I was growing up there as an African American, it's the South, and I'm older, so I experienced some of that racism. And it was not a pleasant place for me as an African American kid to grow up. It also shaped who I am and how I feel about myself. I just felt that I wanted the characters in this book to kind of feel some of that. You know, not only the great things about Louisiana, the food and the culture and the music, but also the things that told, especially African Americans, something about themselves that was not necessarily positive. And that's what Raven was having to fight all along. So I chose to create this town, Bird's Landing. It is very, very loosely based on Shreveport. I just felt that it was something that I wanted to impact Raven in a not necessarily a positive way, and something that she would have to get over. So that's the reason that I chose a fictional place. And of course, you don't want to insult the people of Louisiana, but
That's true.
yeah. But you also want to say some things in there was not very pleasant. I mean, I remember I tell my friends that even I'm 56 and segregation was kind of over when I was growing up, but you still in the 70s had whites only at the laundromats, and there were places that you knew you couldn't go. And I had a very, very strong mom. I would come home sometimes and say, Mom, they didn't want me to go into the store. And she would tell me to put my shoes back on and march right back up in there, because she said, they're going to get used to you. And
Good for your mom.
Yeah.
I know.
Do you see any intrinsic changes down in the Deep South?
I do. When you're growing up, you're a teenager. I left when I was 18, and got your hormones going, and you got the racism, and that's kind of all I saw. But when I went back, when my aunt died, oh man, I saw the food. And then my cousin has actually been with the sheriff's department down there for decades. Just everybody embraces you, and I didn't feel that racism that deep every day in the different places that I went. Everybody was just such an awesome place to visit. So I do see some changes on a micro level just from that visit to the place that I would go again. Most definitely.
Well, that's good. That shows there's hope for this world.
Yes.
At the end of the book, I really didn't expect to see another Raven book, but you alluded earlier that you have plans for more books for Raven. So do you have any upcoming books or events you'd like our listeners to know about?
Yes. Raven is going to be a part of a 4-book series, and it's going to be based on the elements, fire, water, air, and then earth. And then the next one is going to be on a water theme. She's going to make a decision, and she may not be conscious that she's actually making a decision. She's going to be making a decision about what type of person she's going to become. And so at the end of the 4-book series, if God's willing and my agent's willing and my publisher is willing, she will have decided what type of person that she's going to be. And you're going to see her maybe go off and be a little 3/4 Floyd and 1/4 Raven, or maybe go off and be Raven as a law-abiding citizen of the Deep South, but I don't know yet, so we'll see.
She kind of showed a little bit in this book, too. There was a little taste of Floyd in there.
He came peeking out there.
Yeah. I start this book with this idea, and I'm all lofty and everything, and I've got this crazy man talking to me, telling me how the book's going to go, and then I said, okay, I'll just pick up this character, and I'll mold her, and this is what she's going to do. No. Raven was like, oh, no, I don't think so.
These characters just take over.
She did. I'm thinking, oh, how am I going to get you out of this mess? And she's like, I don't know. Figure it out.
I'll be glad when the next book comes out.
Do we have a time frame for that?
I'm still writing it. It may be longer than we like, God willing, and my publisher and agent willing. I don't have a time frame. I am looking forward to showing them what I have so we can get one.
Oh, awesome. Now, you write other genres too, don't you?
Yes. I've been in information technology forever. Writing has always been my first love. I started out with poetry and then short stories. And then I went into like this romantic suspense kind of thing when I was was much younger. And after I'm done with this Raven sequel, I'm actually writing some historical stuff as well. It's just like something that keeps calling to me. I don't know why. Something that I'll probably be doing it on my deathbed. Give me a pen.
Well, we're really glad that you have that calling because we very much enjoyed this book.
You're a literary channel.
That's what you feel like sometimes. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Well, when you do get the next book out, be sure and let us know so we can make sure our listeners know it's coming.
I will most definitely do that.
Well, thank you so much, Faye, for agreeing to be on the show. We so much enjoyed this book, and we look forward to the next installment. We wish you all the best.
Oh, thank